Thank you very much indeed for speaking to AnewZ. I'd like to start by talking about cooperation. You've spent so much of your career in public life talking about the importance of peace, cooperation, compromise. At the moment, it seems that some of that may be going out of fashion. Does that concern you, and how worried should we be?
Very briefly, there is no development and no well-being if there is no peace. Peace, you cannot talk about war, which is basically destroying everything and killing people, and talking about improving people's welfare and improving their well-being and development and etc. So that's not compatible. So yes, that's number one, and I've devoted a large part of my life to making the life of the poor better than it was, or as I could help it. So that's part one. Part two, it is true that there can be no peace and security if there is no justice. And in the sense of justice as fairness, that you ensure that it's not just legally correct, but that it is also fair to the people concerned. And that requires inclusion, participation, and fundamentally caring. And we have had a wonderful development in humanity, first with the Millennium Development Goals and then with the Sustainable Development Goals, where humanity has said, this is the collection of things that we think we should do for development. And inherent in all of that, of course, is peace. And peace, I remind people, I was just arguing with somebody earlier today about this, and they said, these are enemies and so on. I said, let me remind you of one thing. You always make peace with your enemies, not with your friends. You don't need to make peace with friends, but peace is what you make with enemies. And yes, that does take compromise. Compromise in the good sense of the word, which means learning to appreciate the other person's point of view, seeing what they care for, and getting them to appreciate my point of view so they can see what I care for, and then we can see how we can accommodate what we both care for most in whatever outcome we're going to design. And that's how you get lasting peace. And Abraham Lincoln had a great statement about that when he said, I don't like this man, I need to get to know him better, which I thought was a wonderful comment from a wonderful man, a wonderful human being.
Yeah, wonderful comment. You've also spent a huge part of your career surrounded by books.
Yes.
Reading them, writing them. You famously revived one of the most prestigious libraries that's ever been in Alexandria. Do you worry at all about the future of education? I mean, I spend quite a lot of time trying to get my kids to stop playing on TikTok. We know there's huge value in books, in reading. Attention spans are dropping. How should we think about curating a healthy future when it comes to the education of our children?
Well, I think that like everything else, new technologies give us new opportunities, and they challenge us to think differently about what we used to do in the past. And that's one of the reasons why, for example, and I can talk about that if you want some more later, I am one of the people who is very pro artificial intelligence, and I'm not the least bit worried about it. But fundamentally, there are so many things that could not be done and that suddenly can be done, and it opens up all sorts of new avenues. Now, the education system technique, I mean, you're talking about the content of the education, the method of education, who are the participants in the process, the venue where it takes place. And education is not just acquiring skills or knowledge, it is also socialization. You're turning dependent young children into independent adults who are going to be hopefully constructive citizens in a collective. And that's why it's not something that a child can do by themselves somewhere with just reading books. You need to have children grow with other children in the same age group to learn to interact, and socialization, values, norms, etc., that are imparted by the past generation to the new generation, and the new generation takes that, but also deals with the new realities that their parents and grandparents couldn't even conceive of. And thus, yes, it has to change. And this is one of the reasons when I'm hearing about people saying, oh, well, now AI can write essays for the kids at school and so on. And I said, fine, and think of other ways of asking the questions. Why were you asking children to write essays? You're trying to find certain skills. Have they acquired sufficient vocabulary? Do they have a reasonable, rational way of linking one argument to another? Can they express themselves in a narrative? Okay, let's find different ways of testing these things, not relying simply on an essay. We can find other ways of doing that, and so on and so on. I mean, in fact, I've published several books about education. So
I think a lot of people watching this will actually feel quite reassured that someone with your vast experience, as you put it, is not in the least bit worried about AI.
Well, I just gave a big talk to a huge conference of librarians, and they were very concerned. And initially, they asked me to give the keynote address, and the conference title was, "How can we protect our jobs in the era of artificial intelligence?" And I said, what do you mean? It's going to be wonderful. And I gave them two examples. The first example is that it is not true that it will take away your job. It will take away some jobs, but not all jobs. And the best example I can give you of that is accountants. Now, just remember, accountants used to total up numbers, and then they would enter them into ledgers all by hand. When electronic calculators came, they said, my God, one accountant can do the job of 5 accountants, so 80% of the accountant jobs are going to disappear. Not true. We have more accountants today than we used to have before, and in fact, the students are also increasing, student accountants. The salaries of accountants are going up, but they do different work that they couldn't do before. The machines do all the Excel sheets and so on and so forth. They look for patterns, they try to interpret the patterns, and they try to think through how to do it, and the job itself becomes more interesting, but new jobs are created. So the same thing is going to happen for librarians. Same thing is going to happen for a lot of other people. You'll just suddenly discover that you can do things which you couldn't do before, and therefore you demand a lot more from the nature of the job than you would have done before. And let's think about this. We used to have in libraries, for example, these little catalogs, little card catalogs. Remember, you go through the card catalogs like that? Well, it all became electronic, the OPAC, the Open Public Access catalogs. That didn't mean we have less catalogs. It didn't mean we have less librarians. It's just different kinds of things. And we will move from such things, for example, as databases to what we refer to as knowledge bases. And Tim Berners-Lee was the inventor of the World Wide Web, always wanted to go to the semantic web, where you're not looking for objects, but you're looking for the connections between objects. That's all becoming possible with AI, which wasn't the case before. And so on and so forth. I can wax poetic about all of that. But fundamentally, it is it opens up avenues. And the most amazing thing I can think of, first of all, there's a very famous inventor, Serbian inventor called Nikola Tesla. The car is named after him, but fundamentally he's a great person. He invented 2 of the most important things, although he was not into business so much or so, but wireless. It was Marconi who got the credit, but it was Tesla who did wireless, and electric current, because Thomas Edison wanted direct current, and he said no, alternating current would be the right thing, and it was George Westinghouse who supported the alternating current. But he was right about that. Now, Tesla had a very profound observation. He said, every new technology looks like magic. And then when you have it, you take it for granted. And that, to me, here is the most powerful example I can give you. If you had said 25 years ago, I will give you a small piece of plastic metal like that with no wires, and you can put a number on it, and it will find this person, whether they are in the US or Europe or India. One person out of 8 billion will be able to reach them, that one person when you want them. It will also be able to find for you any piece of information you want to find about anything in the world. You can also take pictures with it and all of that. And you have said, nah, come on, science fiction. But hey, now we have it, we take it for granted. And that's the same with AI. Right now we're just at the beginning of AI, so it's looking like magic. But in a little while we'll take it for granted.
Do you think the internet, I know you have many friends, acquaintances that were very much the pioneers of the internet. Do you think that there is something about this new future where everything is in a phone, access to all knowledge, that means that knowledge won't be as important going forward, that we'll be looking more at people's skills, their character, their ability to communicate?
In part, yes, but that's the different kinds of jobs require different kinds of skills. There is a negative side, of course, to all of this. And you all know about deep fakes and how they can clone your voice and your appearance and make you like you're talking about something on video which is not real, and so on and so forth. So there are some real risks on that side as well. But that's equally true of almost every technology in the world, from the invention of fire to the kitchen knife. Knife can be a weapon, it can be very useful, to atomic energy, to you name it. Everything could be misused, abused, as well as used well. I believe that technology, science and technology generally, on balance, have done enormous advances for humanity. In fact, I will say, if you look at science and the technology that comes from science, that in the last 400 years, every single advance that humanity has benefited from has come from that. Whether it's in medicine, whether it's in housing, whether it's in transport, you name it. And it was all, every time these improvements came about. Now, they do bring some wrenching in societies as they enter into the field in which we work. So the Industrial Revolution brought a period of transition that was difficult, and other things like that will happen as well. But I have a very easy answer for that. The best estimate that I've looked at, I've done a lot of studies on these things, is that we expect that AI will reduce jobs, this time white-collar jobs, by 28%, but will create 35% more jobs, different jobs. But the problem, however, is that the people who lose the jobs are not necessarily trainable to take the new jobs. So if you have 28%, they can't just fit into the 35%, and then you have a small increment to add. But the answer to me is very simple. I think we are all going to move very soon to a 4-day week. I'm old enough to remember when we had 1 day off a week. Now we have 2 days off a week, and everybody considers this is normal. A weekend is 2 days. Well, a weekend will be 3 days. And that means that of the 5-day week, you've taken away 20%. So your 28% loss, you just have 8 left. Those are likely to be the ones who can be retrained to fit into the 35% as younger people move in. It's happened before. And it will happen again as more and more efficiency and so on and productivity is built in. That will happen. It will also help us solve a lot of very important problems, qualitatively as well, because we are going to be facing a very big problem because we have been so successful in not losing children dying, improving longevity of people, geriatric life, etc. As people grow older, the medicine that requires, and artificial intelligence is doing marvelous work, from the analysis of protein folding to the reading of radiographies and X-rays and so on. It assists in healthcare in fantastic ways, and we need that as well.
Well, it's a very hopeful vision of the future that you paint for us. Thank you very much for coming in and speaking to us on AnewZ.
Oh, you're most welcome.